Hi, this is Darren from SimNation. Just want to do a quick video on defense within Draft Day Sports Pro Football 2023, which of course is a Wolverine Studios title. A couple of you have asked me to do this for a few weeks now, and I've been trying to think about how I wanted uh, to talk about defense. So this is going to be a quicker video. I'm not going to go ad nauseum into details. But I think I'm going to use Pittsburgh as an example because right now they're the number one ranked defense in the WWPF, and they were the number one ranked defense last season as well. Um, so a couple of things about 2023, and let's start here. There was a difference in defense. Historically, it used to be that if you had speed, or if you had speed at linebacker or cornerback and you had strength on the defensive line, you probably had a recipe for a really good defense. And coaches really didn't matter in the base formations that were largely the most successful were the 3-3-5 in the corridor, along with 3-4. I don't know that that's really the case anymore. I think that you can do a lot of different things with defense depending on what you want to do. So the first thing I guess I would say is there's no one size fits all. If we were to look at the WWPF, the top three teams, if I'm not mistaken, defensively are the Steelers, who are at number one, Jets number two, Jacksonville's number three. They each do it kind of differently. Now, there's some similarities maybe between the Jets and the Steelers when it comes to linebackers, but when it comes to the Jaguars, it's different. So all three have been successful. All three are doing well. Of course, the Jets and the Steelers, if you saw the last video I did, are both vying for the number one seed in the AFC, um, and are really dominating right now. So, but I think let's start with the coaches because one of the biggest differences in 2023 is coaches actually matter. What do I mean by that? So if you look at the Steelers coaches, I'll start with Nugent because it all starts actually with him. He's the head coach of the Steelers. As you can see, he's been the head coach for a long time with the Steelers, probably, what, 15, 16 seasons. He is a defensive minded coach. When I hired him in 2032 or 2033, he was high up for me because he was a defensive coach, and I felt that I needed that for the Steelers in order for them to compete. And it's evident downhill. He's not a good preparation coach, but I really got him because he was good with defense. He was really strong with linebackers and defensive line. To me, those are two of the linchpins of my past defenses and even of my current defense. But when I say coaches matter, the biggest thing about this that matters is one, you got to have a coach that has the ability to coach a defense. The other thing is when you call your plays or you create playbooks, you need to have playbooks that actually kind of match your coaches. It doesn't have to be exact, but largely, whether you run a 4-3, 3-4, 5-2, nickel, dime, 3-3-5 corridor, I don't think that matters as much. I think what matters as much is the scheming. So what I mean by that is like here, this statement that he schemes for dominating in the trenches. He likes mixing up coverage. He wants to shut down the passing game. The defensive line is rushing the passer, and he likes versatile linebackers. That matters when you're building your game plan. One of the things that I noticed last season as 2023 came out, and of course I knew about this already because I played the college game, is that those statements aren't just text. They actually tell you how you can be successful with this coach. Now, of course, if he sucked at coaching defense, it wouldn't matter. But he doesn't. He's actually a very good coach of defense. So when I build my game plan, I'm going to keep that stuff in mind because I'm going to mix my coverage up. I'm going to largely try to take away the pass. I'm going to rush the passer a lot with the defense. And I need to have fast, agile linebackers because it plays to his strengths. Roderick Sanders is the defensive coordinator. He's a decent coach of defense. He's a decent preparer, but outside that, he kind of sucks. And he wasn't the Steelers' defensive coordinator last year. I lost that defensive coordinator to another team. I think he's a head coach now, if I'm not mistaken. But again, the scheme is relatively the same. Mixing up the coverage is the same. He's a little bit more around the running game, so he balances Nugent pretty well. And then, of course, the same thing with the versatile linebackers. Now, there's a lot of conversation around the coaches, but what I will tell you is just hands down, coaches matter in 2023. So you need to make sure that whoever your coaches are, that you're getting people who are good at coaching, at least one of them, and then that the scheming and really fits the coach. So a lot of the schemes that we just talked about, you'd find under game planning. So I'll go into this in a little bit more, but I'll walk through that in a second. Now, the next big thing is the players themselves. So some things haven't changed. If you want to have a very good pass defense, you need to have good rush. You need to have good pass coverage. The way pass coverage manifests in this game, let me go to roster. By the way, if you're trying to use that screen to game plan against me, I change it routinely, so it probably is not going to help you though. Um, but like in cornerbacks are pretty straightforward, unless you're playing a lot of zone. If you're playing man coverage or mixed coverage, you want speed, you want agility, and you want hands. Those are the things that matter most. Now, I will say that I've noticed a trend towards uh, intelligence maybe mattering a little bit more. You also do want people who have skill that prevents penalties. It means that they go where they're supposed to go, and they understand their position. Um, Pittsburgh has historically had decent defenses, but before last year, they weren't really great. I've always schemed for fast cornerbacks. I just couldn't get them. And if you look at the Jets, they're probably a perfect example of they have a good pass defense, but they don't have fast corners because finding fast corners is hard. They're at a premium. Everybody's going after them. About 2, 3 seasons, I lucked into getting Huey Hardaway and Michael Kindle. I think I outbid Peter for them actually. Both of them are fast, and both of them have decent agility, and they've got good size, and they have good skill. Now, Kindle, of course, has a horrible endurance. I don't play him every down. I also drafted Scott Riley, who is a very fast cornerback. His skill is not that good. He makes a lot of mistakes, but he has decent agility. And again, he's tall. Neil Flores is my shutdown corner. I added him, I think, a season or two ago, and he traditionally will take on the top wide receiver unless they have a speed of 94 or higher, and then I put Riley against them. And then, of course, I drafted Leslie Fiore, and I signed this Jeffrey Flores this year in free agency, who was a guy I tried to draft, but for whatever reason didn't go through. But I mean, for a long time, my pass defense has actually been pretty bad because I just didn't have the corners to be able to keep up with the Denvers, the Oaklands, the New York Jets, uh, and the Chargers, who all had speed wide receivers. That's changed a little bit. Now, how I offset and how I managed to hang with them sometimes was playing a lot of zone. And if you're going to play zone, speed does matter. I hate when people say it doesn't. It does actually, but what matters more in a zone type coverage is agility. And you want to have people have good hands. Skills are non-negotiable now. You really need to have people have skill. Um, but if they have huge amounts of speed, you probably can get away with not having it there. But if you're going to play the zone, you want to make sure they have agility. And then, of course, the big change in the offseason was I finally got speed at free safety. I never really had bad free safeties, I just didn't have fast ones. Of course, this season I'm being tested a little bit because both of my free safeties are out due to injury. But I will tell you the fundamental shift was this guy right here was Hello. Adding him really 3 seasons ago was where I started to be able to build a really good defense. Last year, of course, Pittsburgh was the number one defense. This year, they're number one again. and a large part of that has to do with Hello. We talk a lot, and Frankie and I talked about this in the college, is one of the things that matters most to me when it comes to defensive backs is uh, catches allowed to target ratio as well as pass defense. So in this case, he's just a shy above 50%, which is good for catch allowed to target. And he has 5 pass defenses, which means that he's causing some of that disruption. If you go back and look at my number one, which is Neil Flores, what you'll see here is 43 catches allowed out of 88. So he's just a shy below 50%, which is really good. And he has 23 pass defenses. So he's actually contributing a lot to stopping catches from being allowed. Now, sometimes you see a ratio like this and you see that this may be 5. That may not be indicative actually of the cornerback. It's more indicative of the rush causing that. So the other thing is that strong safety. I do have speed, but here I play it a little bit differently. My strong safety a lot of time is in zone. So what matters more to me is a little bit more the agility and the hands and the tackling, which is why I have Taylor. Taylor's been a part of the Steelers since I drafted him a long time ago, and he's had some really good stats over the years. I blitz a lot with my strong safety. So having speed, but also having the ability to wrap up is pretty important. Plus, he does normally play near the line in a box. So it matters a lot to have him be able to creep up on the line and be able to make tackles. As you can see, he's not horrible against the pass, but he's not great either. But I do play him. Jose Meadows, I brought in to get me a faster strong safety, and that helps a lot. So that's never really changed. So if you're playing zone, you want agility as number one, you want speed as number two. If you're playing a lot of man coverage, you want speed as number one, hands as number two. I think strength and size does matter because, again, wide receivers are getting taller. So you want to have cornerbacks who are roughly above 6 foot tall, ideally around 6'2". Now, the big fundamental changes in roster is on the defensive line. Now, linebacker, I've seen this done multiple ways. I will tell you I am a speed linebacker person, and the reason for that is I would like versatile linebackers. I want them to be able to blitz. I want them to be able to stop the run, but I also want them to be able to drop into coverage. So to me, a linebacker who has above 85 is premium for me. I will spend money and I will go after them pretty hard. Juan Finley, of course, came over from the Redskins. I forget where Pruitt came from, but he wasn't drafted by me. Almost all my linebackers have been taken from another team through free agency. I do value tackling, but strength is not as high for me. I do use strength in run packages like Pruitt, Finley, and Bray will be on a lot of the downs I feel are running downs, mostly just because they have strength and they can hold up against fullbacks, tight ends, and other people. But because I do play a lot of my linebackers in coverage, speed matters more to me because I got to be able to cover running backs and tight ends, in some cases wide receivers. Finley's probably a great example where actually he's playing as the backup strong safety right now because both my free safeties are out. Um, Size not as important to me, candidly. Pruitt is the leader of the defense, mostly because he has the highest intelligence. Bray, if he was on more often, probably would be the backup to that. But again, skill matters here just the same. You do want to have linebackers who have endurance because you want to make sure that they can play quite a bit. I carry a lot of linebackers and a lot of defensive line because I rotate them constantly, which means that in other positions I'm carrying less. But to me, the most fundamental trait you want to have if you want to have a great defense is on the defensive line. I'm sorry, is speed, probably followed by agility and tackling. Um, Skills are non-negotiable. You should have that regardless. Now, the big shift and the reason why the Steelers suddenly got better had to do with the line. I changed my philosophy on the line. Before, I would tell you that my defensive tackles needed to be strong, maybe not as fast, have decent tackling and skill. My defensive ends should be just fast and agile, and that mattered more. And then what I began to realize over time is I wasn't playing to, and this is the reason why my past defenses sucked for a while, is I wasn't playing to the offensive line. And what I mean by that is when I looked at my opponent's offensive line, I wasn't matching my packages, my formations to that offensive line. I'll use an example is if I was playing myself, and I will show you this. So let's start on the outside because that's normally where defensive ends are playing, right? Is if I were to look at this, I would immediately notice that I am a technique offensive lineman on the tackles. What that means is my people are not very strong, but they're fast and they are good at blocking. So what I would immediately think about here is I'm probably not going to be able to blast these guys off the edges with speed. So I might want to think about agility because if Holly is starting and he does, uh, I can probably get by him with agility. I definitely can get by him with strength. So if I have stronger linemen, I want to play them, and this is what they call bull rushing. And so someone once asked me, what is the difference between bull and speed rushing? Speed rushing is about speed, bull rushing is about power. But within power comes agility too. So if you're going to bull rush a line, you want to make sure you have strength and agility, at least better than the offensive linemen. If they're slow, you want to speed rush them. My people are not slow, so you're not going to speed rush me. But if you want to be successful, what you probably might want to do is account for the fact that these guys are not very strong. In one case, not very agile. So I would try to figure out where Holly's playing, whether he's on the left side or the right side. And then I would try to negate his ability in the run game by having an agile lineman who's strong at the point of defense. If you look at the guards, traditionally this is where defensive tackles are playing, plus inside linebackers. Um, what you notice again is it's technique. There's not really strength here. Now, Eric McClendon has some strength, but what you also notice is McClendon and Shipley both have agility too. And they are decently fast, but they are very good at blocking. Now, you may be able to get away with some things with McClendon because his skill's not that high. So when I look at this, I would be thinking again, I want to bull rush these guys. Um, Now, the challenge that you run into the league, and we'll talk about this when I show you my defensive line, is you don't want one size fits all. So you're not going to try to go all out on bull rushing. What you should have is a good combination of bull rushers and speed rushers and maybe balanced or balanced across the board. So you can insert people in and out depending on the lines you're facing. And then, of course, at center, if you look, Boone is my starter, and he's moderately fast. He's got decent agility. He's weak, but again, he's a very strong. He's good in technique. Um, so now, when you look at my defensive line, what you'll notice immediately is I'm playing. Speed does matter to me. I won't lie to anyone about that. So I have stacked my line with speed. They're not always the best tacklers. Hickson and Weiss are my two best tacklers. Perry's an up and comer. McGee is smart, so is Perry. But when you look at the strength, if I'm playing bull rushing technique, I'm normally playing Kiro or Maggie as my two defensive ends. And I do that in run packages, by the way. Uh, but traditionally, Hickson starts in every down because he's a great balanced defensive end. Now, his trait is that of a speed rusher, whereas Perry's is that of a bull rusher. Um, so traditionally, if I think that you have weak offensive linemen, meaning that they're not very strong, I'm going to probably focus packages with Kiro and Maggie. Uh, Maggie will rotate in for Hickson occasionally, but it's traditionally going to be Caro and Hickson are the two on the defensive end. If I'm thinking speed rushing, it's traditionally going to be Hickson and Perry. I do play Weiss a lot just because he's just good in general. And he's a smart player with good skill, but Hickson's in on every down just because Hickson, if I show you, is he's just a stud. One of the things you want to see with a really good defense, by the way, is while he's getting a ton of sacks, uh, and I mean, he averages around 14, 15 a season. He's on pace to get that again this year. The bigger number to me is the disruption he does in the backfield. So hurries, knockdowns are very important to me. And he traditionally is getting into the backfield and just disrupting people. Now, I don't think he's going to have as good of a year this year as he did last year. Well, he hurried the quarterback 31 times. He knocked him down 41 times in addition to 14 sacks. I think this year he's actually getting more sacks, but part of this also is he was hurt, and I'm rotating people in and out more because of the fact that he got hurt. So what you'll see is like if we look at Weiss, Weiss has been playing more snaps this year. Perry is the guy drafted. Perry is a younger version to me of Hickson because again, he's getting into that backfield and he's just completely disrupting uh, the quarterback, which when we talk about catch allowed to target, when you see sometimes someone has a lot of who has few catches allowed against a lot of targets but not a lot of pass defenses, it's because of these guys. These are the guys hurrying the quarterback to make him throw the ball faster so that way it's incomplete. It's not really the secondary that's the reason, it's because of the defensive line. Now, on the defensive tackle, I've shifted my philosophy. In the past, I was strength, strength, strength above all else. Now it's agility and speed. So Baines is having a really good year because he's got high agility, great speed for defensive tackle, helps that he's 322 pounds. But on running downs, I bring in Drake, who helps me with the point of defense because he's pretty strong, plus he's fast. On passing downs, I play a lot of Cosgrove, who is fast and agile. But Baines is the number one defensive tackle for me. Peters tried to get this guy a couple times, and he had him for one season before I managed to snag him. But if I have my way, Baines is going to retire on Pittsburgh. He's just that good of a defensive tackle. So the way I play defense is I vary my defensive line between bull rushing and speed rushing depending on what I see on the offensive line. I do focus wholly on speed at the linebacker core, but I do make sure that I do have strength for running downs and agility as well. And then the secondary, because I don't play a lot of zone, I do mix it. So there are people playing zone. So like I mentioned, Taylor plays a lot of zone, so I don't need him to be as fast. He just needs to be agile. Uh, but a lot of my cornerbacks play man to man, whereas my safeties are more in zone. So I need to have speed for the cornerbacks because a lot of times they're going against very fast people. Now, all that's great. That's your basic underpinning, right? But I think the real key outside of coaches in having the right players is having the right game plan. So I do something a little different than others do, in that I normally carry three game plans. I carry a run playbook, a balanced playbook, and a pass playbook. The run playbook is anything less than 50. So if I look at your game analysis and I see that running the ball like 30 to you're running the ball like 60 to 70% of the time, uh, which means here it would be 30 or 40. So like with myself on first down, I'm going to do a run package, run package. This is balanced because anything from 50 to 60, I go to a balanced playbook, balanced run, balanced, balanced, run, pass, pass, run, pass, pass. You can't see this, unfortunately. I'm only showing you this because I'm showing you Pittsburgh, but you can kind of see some of the stuff in the game analysis. And I strongly recommend that if you want to build a really good defense, you need to look at this. So I play Cincinnati. Let's just say I was looking at the last game I played them. I'd look at play analysis. I would see what are they running. So RPO translates a lot of times into running. So 9 passes, 17. I'm now going to start to extrapolate that. I may even go so far as to look at the play-by-play to see what the downs were if I'm really trying to get in there. So when I play Peter, I really get to the gnat's ass because I need to understand what Peter's up to. So what I mean by that is I'll go into play-by-play, I'll go here, and I'll say, okay, on 1st and 10, he ran. On 1st and 10, he ran. 1st and 10, he ran. 1st and 20, he ran. So what this is telling me is largely that on first down, the majority of the time, they're running the ball. So when I go back to my strategy, I'm going to make sure that on 1st and 10 and 1st and short, because that's what I saw, is that I have run packages. Maybe what I saw is 1st and medium, he's kind of running the ball, but he's also throwing it about an equal amount of time, so I'm going to go balanced. If I saw that he was just throwing the ball, I would go pass. And so blitzing. If you're going against a team that's entirely passing the ball, blitz the hell out of them. But again, make sure you got the right matchup. So pick on the linemen based on what they're not good at. If they're technique, bull rush them. If they're not fast, speed rush them. But if it's entirely pass, just blitz. Go 75 to 100 and just go across the board. Now, if they're running the ball a lot, don't blitz heavily because you're going to create circumstances where they're likely going to get large gains. For me, if they're running the ball, anywhere from 20 to 40% blitz is about appropriate. Game planning, I mentioned this earlier. This is important because this is where you're setting the plays that are actually going to get called by the coaches. And again, this gets back to try to stay in the wheelhouse of what the coach is good at, because even though you have a custom playbook, you don't have only one defense in that playbook, right? So you need to make sure that whatever's in that playbook that you want them to run, you're calling it out here. So when I played the Jets, and I'll talk about that in a second, I actually had this set to aggressive because I needed to be aggressive with them in order to try to shut them down. Pass is if you think they're going to throw the ball a lot, set it for pass. Again, my coaches are good at mixed coverage, so I have this set to mix. They like rushing the passer off the line, so I have set that to pass rush. Linebackers, versatile means mixed, so I have that. And then, of course, generally, your most skilled defensive player with decent intelligence should be the radio. And so in that case, it's Jeffrey Pruitt. Don't ever really check this button. It's going to hurt. But there are times where if someone's only playing shotgun in the spread, it's maybe appropriate to check it. But then watch what you're doing here. I will, like when I play the Jets, I always have always because they're going to throw a lot of wide receivers at me, and I want my cornerbacks covering the wide receivers. So I'll do always, but when I play someone like Peter who's going to move things around on me, I'm probably going to put Neville. Uh, Make sure that you're calling out the right person. If you're not sure, always choose auto. It's not set to auto because I keyed on someone in the last game, but make sure you're always changing this and that you're focusing on the person you want to cover. Because it's the Bengals, I really don't care, so I would set that to auto. But in my last game, I want to say that I had it set to Wilmer Alvarez, I think, to try to take his wide receiver out of the game. Again, if you have coordinators and coaches that are good at prep, leave that button checked. In this case, when I played the Jets, I didn't. I actually checked it off and went to long passing because I had noticed when I looked at the game analysis that they were throwing the ball long a lot. So I wanted to take the long passing game out of their hands. And it makes sense. They have Roberts, they have Martin, they have, I forget what the other guy's name is, but they're all fast. And DP loves to throw the ball long. So if you're playing DP, what I would say is check to see what he's done over the last game or two, and then set long passing, and then really focus on ensuring that you have plays that have long zones. What do I mean by that? So I'll choose one that actually I did use on DP, although it's changed quite a bit, is um, most of these plays I did use on DP, but long zones are I want the person to fall backwards because I have to deal with the speed. So these two are trying to jam them, but these two are congesting lanes. Because what I noticed is he's doing a lot of flies, he's doing a lot of streaks, he's doing a lot of posts. This defends well against the post, and I also have my safety dropping back so I can deal with their speed. Because DP also will throw short, uh, screens, slants, curve flats. This is perfect for defending against a curve flat because I'm protecting long against the pass, but I'm also congesting the space where a slant or a curve flat would go, and then I'm also guarding against ends because I think he does ends as well. But this also protect the slant. I'm putting people in the space where the passes are going to be to create circumstances where I'll either defend against it and stop it, or be in a position where my people can make the tackle. So as you look at the plays that you're choosing, what I would say is you really should have a good understanding of the plays. And I'll show you exactly what that means. So like offensively, um, one of the plays that I think he ran was, oh boy, which one was that? It's not on here. So let me show you because he did a drag, I think, if I remember correctly. That's not what I want to do. I'll just do this. I don't use this playbook anymore, so I really don't care if I show it to you. I keep some of my playbooks because I just want to know. But like when you look at an in from a defensive mindset, you're thinking about where are all the people that you want to have. So you want to have to ensure that this guy's getting covered, but you have someone in the middle to deal with that. And again, like I showed you, those flats actually play where you are now cutting off this curve flat. And then because it's dropping back into the middle, they can now cover these two. And then you just need to make sure that someone's covering this guy. So that's how I choose my plays. I see what plays you're playing the most, and then I start looking at the graphics, and then I start thinking about how I'm going to do that. And that's how you end up with things like this, which is saying, okay, I'm just going to guard a lot of people. I'm cutting off the sides, and then so on. So I, I I would tell you generally I love deep press safeties down. It's one of my favorite defensive coverages from the dime perspective because one, I'm pressing you, but two, because of where they go, they block a lot of different short passing games. And because the person in the middle is dropping back, it also helps me to create a thing that if you're squaring in, because square in is a thing, you're able to stop it most of the time. But how I beat DP largely came down to I ran a lot of nickel and dime, largely these plays, right? And what I was trying to do is I put Scott Riley on Martin, and then I put Flores on Roberts. And what I said it was 100 blitz because I wanted to get into the backfield and I wanted to disrupt him. Uh, my goal, I hate to say it, was actually to injure Spriggs, so that way I could take him out of the game and deal with his backup. And what you notice is Spriggs still had a pretty good game, but he wasn't able to use the long pass the way that he normally would. So like when you look at this, he does a lot of play action, by the way, but he didn't complete a streak, which is one of the things I was aiming for. Core flats actually did pretty well against it. The ends also did well against it. But he caught me in the 4-3. So what that means is I wasn't in my pass coverage when that was happening. So I misgauged. Uh, I had the wrong defensive plan on that down. And I'd have to go back and look and see. But again, I stopped the slot digs. Just didn't do well in general against the out. I think I thought he would run more than he actually did. And then for transparency, he didn't post the game file, but I took away the posts. Whereas if you look at a lot of the times where he's most successful, it's in the long passing game. Uh, but they did a really good job actually against the short passing game because most of the time they were catching me in the 4-3, as opposed to if I choose a different team. We'll just look at Oakland. Oakland had a good game, so this isn't going to be bad. But again, I did a good job of causing incompletion, shutting down the run. But the few times that he did complete, he actually hurt me. So again, goal here was take away the flies, take away the streaks. Largely was successful with that because I was playing a lot of deep zone. And you see that for the most part, I was able to catch him with the dime most of the time and actually be able to shut it off. The play action wasn't as successful, but I think a lot of the defense that I'm doing is I'm varying it up. I am focusing a lot on the plays and what plays my opponent is running. And then I'm looking at matchups on the defensive line against the offensive line. And you should include linebackers in that as well. And the end result, as you can see, is Pittsburgh's having a very good year with shutting down other teams, despite the injuries that are starting to really stack up. And if we look back to last season, Pittsburgh did well too. They were the number one ranked defense last season as well. So um, a lot of that has to do with just the mentality of I look and see what the opponent has as terms of weapons. I try to align what I have against what they have, and then I look at the plays that they're running predominantly, and then I pick plays that counter well those plays. Now the key though is you also need to make sure you actually have the people to do it. For instance, if you don't really have four fast linebackers, don't be calling a 3-4 because it may hurt you in the long run. But that's kind of how I look at defense right now. I don't know if this will help me at all, but if I were to sum it up, is number one is coaches matter. Find coaches that match your play style or match your strategies to the coach's play style. Number two is look at your depth in your roster and make sure on the defensive line you can vary between bull rushing and speed rushing. In the linebacker core, that you have at least one thumper, someone who can tackle really, really well and is agile to play kind of the middle. And then make sure you have speed. If you're not going to play that way, make sure you have agility. And in secondary, you really should focus on speed. Now, with the safeties, because they'll play zone a lot, you might want to be looking at agility. If you're going to play box safeties, like I play Taylor, you're going to want to have someone who can tackle, who has agility. And then when you look at your playbook for the week, I would say try to have three playbooks. Have a balanced one, have a rushing one, have a passing one. And then anything less than 50, you should use the rushing on that play. Anything between 50, 60, use the balance. Anything above 60, use the pass. If you're going to pass rush, go all in. If you're playing balanced, maybe 50 to 75 makes sense. If you're playing rush, maybe 20 to 40 makes sense. And then after that, it's just keep adjusting it, seeing what's worked, what doesn't work. I mentioned again that if you have limitations on your team, like if you only have really three people on the defensive line between three defensive ends, three defensive tackles, you probably don't want to be running a 4-3. Um, if you only have like five or six linebackers, you might want to think about not running a 3-4. And if you don't have good, fast outside linebackers, you probably don't want to run a 3-4. Um, it's the same for the secondaries. If you don't have a lot of cornerbacks or a lot of safeties or fast linebackers that can play in coverage, you probably want to watch which version of the pass defenses you're going to play. Like some of them like a corridor or some of them like a nickel, I think it is. You're going to struggle a little bit though. So that's it for now. Hopefully you find this beneficial. Uh, if you like the video, let me know. If there's another topic you want me to talk about, definitely let me know. But Pittsburgh's success is largely predicated on some things I've been doing for a long time where I finally managed to get the people to do it. Um, I think I've shared this before. My influencers throughout in WWPF have always been people like Doc, Noah, uh, Butchell, Skeletor, won't let that go to his head, but also it's been framed by conversations with people like Gary and Frankie. Shark has helped influence me in some regards. He bounces things off me, and by doing that, it makes me think, and then suddenly I realize that I have a hole. So if you like it, let me know. If there's another topic you want me to talk about, let me know. I probably will talk about rushing offense next. I'll do that for the SNCFL here shortly because a bunch of people ask me how in the hell am I doing what I'm doing at Washington State. I have two running backs that have 3,800 yards between them, and I'm averaging over 300 yards a game. I'll show what I'm doing there. The caveat here is as I share this stuff with you, I'm largely probably screwing myself in the end, but I don't have a problem sharing it. The better the league, the more competitive the league, more people want to play. Just one thing that's stuck in my craw recently is there's no such thing as copycatting in these leagues, right? If someone's successful, you should be looking at what they're doing. Now, does that mean you run exactly like them? I don't think anyone can. So I will say that I keep tabs on Peter, not because I wish to copycat him, but because I need to know what Peter's doing because I'm going to run into him in the playoffs and I need to be able to beat him. But I have a widely different style than Peter. I have a different style than a lot of the coaches in how I play. Well, a lot of coaches are focused on passing, whereas I focus on rushing. A lot of coaches maybe don't focus as heavily on defense as I do. I focus very heavily on defense because that's how I'm going to win a championship ultimately. And that's how I did when I won it here in 2037 was while my offense was extremely potent, my defense actually was better than 13th. Um, so that's it for now. Hopefully you enjoy this video and I will do some more in the future. Thanks.